I've always believed humiliation doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it walks in quietly, places a hand on your shoulder, and whispers, "You don't belong here anymore." That's how it felt that afternoon, the day my own daughter looked at me not as her mother, but as a burden occupying the wrong room. It was a bright Sunday in Westport, Connecticut, the kind where sunshine turns the world gold and makes you think forgiveness should be easy. My daughter, Madison, was hosting an exclusive brunch. Invitations had gone to venture capitalists, socialites, and her new circle of aspirational friends. They filled my home, laughing loudly, heels tapping across hardwood floors I refinished with my late husband, Thomas Carter. And my dining room table, the solid mahogany one he polished every Christmas, was buried in gourmet food from a Manhattan caterer whose price tag could feed a modest family for a month. I walked slowly toward the dining room, leaning lightly on the cane the doctor said was temporary. It wasn't age, just a stubborn knee and decades of living. But to Madison, weakness was a performance flaw. Respect in her world was conditional and calibrated to status, not sacrifice. The moment she saw me, her expression shifted, like someone noticing a stain on designer fabric. "Oh," she said, sugar in her voice, vinegar behind it. "You're here. We don't really have a seat open at the main table. But there's a chair by the kitchen door. You'll be comfortable there." A few guests glanced at us, waiting for the joke. Surely the woman whose portrait still hung in the foyer wouldn't be sent to sit like a servant. But Madison wasn't joking. Her smile stayed poised, rehearsed, cruel without raising its voice. "The corner?" I asked, softly. She gave me a fake sympathetic tilt of her head. "You know how these events are. The conversations are complicated." Complicated. As if raising her, surviving recessions, building a company from a rented office, and burying a husband didn't qualify me to sit at my own table. But I said nothing. I nodded. And I walked to that little chair beside the kitchen, placed half hidden, as though someone tried to make me invisible and ran out of nerve halfway through. The wood groaned under me. I folded my hands. My expression calm. But inside, my heart pressed against my ribs like it wanted to stand up and speak for itself. Servers passed by without looking at me. Guests toasted to Madison's stories. My startup. My investment firm. My real estate portfolio. Every "am" I echoed with the sound of my husband's hands building what she now claimed as her solo triumph. Then, quietly, a plate appeared in front of me. Not from a server. From Rosa Martinez. She placed it gently, almost respectfully. "You didn't eat breakfast. Your sugar will drop. Eat, please," she whispered. My eyes stung, not from pity, but recognition. She didn't treat me like fragile porcelain. She treated me like a human. Before I could thank her, Madison's voice sliced through the room. "Rosa. What are you doing?" Everyone looked. Silence stretched. "Don't waste food there. She's fine." Then she added, lightly but sharp enough to wound. "She should rest." Sometimes older people don't know when to stop inserting themselves. Older people. Insert themselves. In my house. Someone chuckled. Someone else stared at their glass. No one defended me. Rosa stepped back, eyes lowered, not in shame, but to protect me from more humiliation. She returned to the kitchen, hands shaking slightly. Madison's husband, Brandon Reed, leaned in toward her and muttered, "You really should consider moving her into assisted living." This kind of thing throws off the vibe. They laughed. Quietly. But humiliation never needs volume, it just needs witnesses. I sat still, swallowing dignity like bitter medicine. If you've ever been treated like an outdated photograph in your own home, you understand the kind of silence I sat in. I didn't cry. Tears belong to heartbreak. What I felt wasn't heartbreak, it was clarity. I turned my gaze to the kitchen. Rosa peeked out, concern in her eyes. In that moment, I remembered every morning she knocked softly and brought me tea. Every time she gently reminded me to take medication. The quiet, wordless way she helped me stand when my knee resisted. Blood is inherited. Loyalty is earned. I leaned back in that cheap little chair and closed my eyes. Humiliation lost its sting. A colder truth took its place. My daughter had lost me long before that brunch. Love doesn't evaporate in an explosion, it erodes slowly, like stone in river water. Rosa appeared again later, setting a glass of water on the counter near me, quietly leaving as if kindness wasn't something to be announced. That's when I remembered a line my grandmother once told me. When God removes loyalty from blood, he sends it through strangers. I sat straighter. The air changed. Decision isn't loud, it's steady. And right then, I made one. This home. Not hers. This life's work. Not hers. This legacy. Not hers. I built a future for a child who believed my presence was an inconvenience. That day, in that chair, I chose a new heir. Not chosen by DNA. Chosen by decency. If you're still here with me, tell me one word. Loyalty. Because that day, I understood something life-changing. Family is not blood. Family is behavior. And the one who fed me when my daughter humiliated me? She deserved the life my daughter felt entitled to. After brunch, I didn't yell. Didn't protest. Didn't plead. I simply walked upstairs, dignity wrapped around me like armor. By morning, I sat by the window holding my tea. Westport sun painted everything gentle and golden. Rosa walked in quietly with breakfast. You didn't eat dinner, she said, voice soft. I am not fragile, I smiled. She set the tray down. Being cared for doesn't make you fragile. Then added my medication beside the cup, not asking, just knowing. When she left, I whispered to myself. Respect is not inherited. It is reciprocated. And I was done gifting inheritance to someone who couldn't give respect. Morning sunlight slid across the hardwood floors, the same floors Thomas and I saved 3 years to afford when we were just 2 kids with a dream and a stapled business license. I sat quietly, tea warming my hands, letting silence do the thinking. Rosa came in with my breakfast again, like she always did. You didn't eat dinner last night, she reminded gently. Her voice carried no judgment, just concern that felt like home. I wasn't hungry, I said. She placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. Food keeps strength. And you need strength. She thought I meant physical strength. But the strength I needed now lived somewhere else, somewhere deeper. She walked out, and the house felt heavy. Heavy with truth. Heavy with the absence of gratitude. Around noon, I asked the driver to bring the car around. Madison spotted me as I slowly made my way down the stairs. She looked up from her laptop, irritated that my presence once again did not fit the image she curated. Where are you going? Not are you okay? Not do you need help? Just suspicion dressed as entitlement. To my attorney, I answered calmly. Suspicion turned to panic, quick, sharp, like she suddenly felt the ground shift beneath her feet. For what? For something that concerns me, I replied, adjusting the cuff of my cardigan. And therefore, does not concern you. Her smile twitched, thin and tense. Mom, don't do anything crazy. People talk when older women make rash financial moves. I met her gaze evenly. The only rash move is assuming time does not reveal character. I left before she could reply. The car ride to Whitaker and Associates was quiet, familiar. I had come here with Thomas countless times, to sign loan papers, to restructure, to protect what we built. James Whitaker, silver hair and steady eyes, stood when I entered. Mrs. Carter, he said warmly. I had a feeling today might come. Clarity has its own clock, I replied, lowering myself into the chair across from him. He opened a thick file, the master file holding our life's work. Every deed. Every certification. Every contract that turned sweat into legacy. Tell me, he said softly, what do you wish to do? I looked him in the eyes. My daughter has mistaken inheritance for entitlement. I will not reward disrespect. He nodded slowly. And who do you trust? Someone who feeds me, I said. Who reminds me to take medication. Who covers me with a blanket when I fall asleep in the living room. Someone who shows love without expecting personal gain. He understood instantly. Rosa. Yes. He didn't question it. He didn't tell me I was emotional. He didn't warn me about gossip or judgment. He had seen too many children believe they deserved wealth they never built. We opened the documents. And in quiet strokes of black ink, I began rewriting destiny. Primary control of the trust, reassigned healthcare proxy, updated power of attorney, revoked and reassigned business voting rights, shifted estate beneficiary, balanced with loyalty, not bloodline emergency contact, changed to Rosa Martinez. James paused. You know she may challenge this. She can. I nodded with a calmness even I didn't expect. And when she does, the courts will see exactly who checked on me, who fed me, who respected me, and who treated me like expired furniture. He smiled, not proud, not sad, just respectful. You are doing this with grace. People think grace is softness. Grace is restraint sharpened by wisdom. When I finished signing, James placed a final page in front of me. Do you want to leave a written statement? It helps judges understand intent. I thought for a moment, then wrote. My legacy belongs to loyalty, not entitlement. I set the pen down. Done. When I stood, James gently squeezed my hand. Your husband would be proud. You kept your dignity. When I returned home, Rosa rushed to the door. You didn't tell me you were leaving. I could have helped. I am capable, I told her with a smile. Just because I am getting older doesn't mean I am done. She exhaled, relieved. I just worry. You mean a lot to me. Kindness can break a heart more than cruelty ever could. Madison appeared from the living room, smile stretched tight. Where did you go? She asked, voice coated in false sweetness. To secure my peace, I replied. I hope you're not making impulsive decisions. You mistake clarity for impulse, I said. Then added softly, and you mistake access for ownership. She opened her mouth, but my phone buzzed. A message from James. Documents executed and recorded. Transfers complete. Welcome to peace. I looked at her, and she must have seen something shift in my eyes because her arrogance cracked for just a breath. The next morning, I sat in the kitchen reading. Rosa poured me tea, her movements gentle, habitual, without performance. Madison walked in, phone pressed to her ear. "No, my mother isn't involved anymore," she was saying sharply. "Yes, I run everything. She's basically retired." I just watched. Calm. Still. Silent power. Moments later, her voice hardened. "What do you mean investors asked for her approval? Why? She doesn't do anything anymore." She turned to look at me then. And for the first time in years, she looked unsure. She covered the phone. "They want you to sign something for a funding round. I need you to be ready." "You need me to validate you," I corrected gently. "Investors remember who built the foundation, not who decorates the top floor." She flinched. "What is wrong with you lately?" "I woke up," I said. Finally. Her phone rang again. This time the irritation in her voice turned into panic. "What do you mean documents changed?" she hissed. No, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't. Her eyes slowly turned toward me. Wide. Disbelieving. Threatened. "Mom," she whispered, "what did you do?" I stood, steady and calm, cane tapping once against the tile. "Paper remembers what people forget," I said. "I protected what your father and I built. From greed." You can't do that." "I can," I replied. "And I already did." Her face twisted, a mixture of shock, entitlement, and rage. "You're choosing her? Over me?" "I am choosing love over entitlement," I said. "And loyalty over blood. You'll regret this." "No," I whispered, brushing past her. "You will regret forgetting who raised you." And I walked away, her pride collapsing behind me like a building with rotten beams. Rosa met me in the hallway, concern in her eyes. "You okay?" I took her hand. "I am better than okay," I said softly. "I am free. Because a woman isn't old when her body slows down. She becomes old when she gives up her worth." And today, I reclaimed mine. The rest of the day passed like a quiet storm brewing beneath polished marble. Madison moved through the house with the frantic grace of someone trying to hold their world together by sheer force of denial. I heard her pacing upstairs, heard Brandon's muffled voice through the wall, heard the tone in their whispers shift from arrogance to alarm. Dinner came and went. I ate in the kitchen with Rosa, not because I had to, but because peace tastes better in honest company than ego at a dining table built on inheritance dreams. Rosa didn't ask questions. She never did. She simply placed a bowl of warm soup in front of me and sat with me, occasionally glancing over to make sure I was actually eating. When I finished, she took the bowl and smiled softly, pride in her eyes like she'd accomplished something meaningful. "Thank you," I said. "I only do what's right," she replied. "That," I whispered, "is far rarer than you think." Upstairs, Madison slammed a door. Something glass broke. Footsteps and fast, angry, disbelieving, followed down the hallway. I knew anger well. But desperation? That was new on her. Desperation is the first shadow of consequences. It wasn't long before she appeared at the kitchen entrance, face flushed, voice trembling. Mom. We need to talk. Rosa stiffened, instinctively stepping aside as if trying to protect me without being obvious. I didn't rise. I simply set my teacup down and lifted my eyes to my daughter, the same child who once begged me to braid her hair, who clung to me when she had nightmares, who used to say she wanted to be just like me when she grew up. What is it? You changed everything. Her voice cracked. All the documents. The control. Everything. Why would you do that to me? To you? I repeated gently. No. I didn't do something to you. I did something for myself. She swallowed hard. This is revenge. This, I said, is correction. Her jaw tightened, tears gathering, and not the kind born from heartbreak. These tears belonged to panic. To entitlement meeting a locked door for the first time in its life. You have no idea what you've done, she spat. Investors are questioning things. The bank won't finalize approvals without you. The board wants a meeting. I hope you speak to them respectfully, I said. They built this company with us. She stared at me in disbelief. You think I need advice? I've been running things. You've been performing control, I corrected. Not practicing responsibility. Mom, she breathed, voice trembling, we have plans. We need these deals. Brandon and I. You and Brandon, I said slowly, plan to build your future on a foundation you no longer respected. Her eyes darted around the room, unable to land anywhere safe. This isn't fair. Fair. My voice softened. It wasn't fair when I sat beside the kitchen door in my own home. It wasn't fair when you spoke to me like I was a burden. It wasn't fair when you forgot love is a privilege, not a guarantee. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. Silence answered her better than words. Then she turned to Rosa, sharp, furious, desperate to blame someone she could still feel above. This is your fault. Rosa flinched. I did nothing. That's exactly the point. Madison snapped. You did nothing and yet somehow you took everything. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. Just, decisively. Stop. Madison froze. Rosa's breath caught. You don't get to raise your voice at her, I said. Not in my presence. Not in this home. She manipulated you, Madison insisted. No. She cared for me, I replied. The difference is enormous. You could learn from it. Madison's lips trembled. I'm your daughter. And I was your mother, I said quietly. But somewhere along the way, you treated me like a burden, not a blessing. You stopped seeing me as human. And when you strip humanity from someone, you don't get to claim their loyalty. Her tears spilled then, not regret, but rage at losing control. We'll fight this, she whispered. Legally. Brandon's already talking to lawyers. I nodded once. And when you do, every deposition, every affidavit, every record will show who cared for me and who humiliated me. Judges understand dignity. Investors do too. Her face twisted. You're choosing some stranger over your own blood. Blood gave you birth, I said. Loyalty gave me life. She didn't argue, because you cannot debate truth with entitlement. She just stared at me like I'd transformed into someone unrecognizable, when all I'd done was become the woman I always was, just no longer for her benefit. She stormed off, footsteps shaking through the house, the door slamming behind her like a spoiled child losing her favorite toy. Rosa stood still, hands trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. I didn't mean to cause trouble," she whispered. "You didn't," I said, turning toward her. "Love does not cause trouble. It reveals truth." She pressed her lips together, voice barely audible. "I don't deserve this." "You deserve more than you ever asked for," I replied. "And far more than you ever expected." The evening quiet returned, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a door upstairs opening again, Brandon's footsteps now, heading down the hall. He entered the kitchen, expression stiff, voice falsely polite. "Mother," he said, "let's talk about this rationally. We're family." "Family?" I tilted my head. "I don't recall you ever calling me that before now." His jaw clenched. "We can work out a compromise," he continued. "The company needs unity." "Unity built on disrespect isn't unity," I answered. "It's hostage-taking." His mask slipped just a little. "We're trying to build a future. You're sabotaging us." "You built nothing yet," I said. "You waited to receive." "That's not building. That's anticipating someone else's work." He exhaled sharply, irritation cracking his composure. "You're being unreasonable." "On the contrary," I replied. "This is the most reasonable I've ever been." He stared at me one long second too many, eyes cold, calculating, then gave a tight nod and walked away, like someone retreating to plan a fight they weren't sure they could win. Rosa sank into the nearest chair once he was gone. "I should go. I don't want to cause problems." "If you leave," I said gently, "they win. And I lose the only person who stood beside me when everything else felt hollow." She swallowed back tears. "I just don't want anyone to think." "Rosa," I interrupted, "I don't care what anyone thinks. I care what I've lived. And I lived your loyalty. That's worth more than their opinions." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. We sat together in silence, the kind that isn't empty but full of dignity reclaimed, full of truth laid bare, full of the quiet peace that comes when love finally chooses itself. And upstairs, doors slammed again, voices rose, a marriage rattled under the weight of losing its golden guarantee. For the first time in years, I felt calm. Powerful, not from control, but from release. When night came, I lay in bed, not tired but settled. After a lifetime of giving, I finally held something for myself. My worth. Tomorrow would bring fallout. Fear. Pleas. Anger. Legal threats. Drama. None of it scared me. You cannot intimidate a woman who has already lived through disappointment. And tonight, I slept not as someone whose family was breaking, but as someone finally walking free of the illusion that family meant loyalty. Morning came quietly. No shouting, no slamming doors this time. Just stillness, thick like someone had pressed pause on the world. I stepped into the hallway, feeling the air, heavy with unsaid things, swollen with the weight of consequences beginning to bloom. Downstairs, Rosa was already in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal. She always cooked softly, as though she believed sound could bruise mornings. She glanced up when she saw me, worry flickering behind her gentle smile. "You slept?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. For the first time in a long time, I slept without waiting to be needed by someone who didn't deserve me. Rosa lowered her eyes. She didn't speak, but I saw her swallow emotion like someone learning kindness could also hurt when it came from a rare place. We were interrupted by the sound of careful footsteps, Madison, moving with forced grace, the way guilty people do when they're trying to appear composed. She entered the kitchen, dressed immaculately, makeup perfect, hair smooth and intentional. But her eyes betrayed her, wild, restless, flickering with panic she couldn't dress up. "Good morning," she said, voice tight. I nodded politely. "Good morning, Madison." Rosa quietly poured my tea and placed it in front of me. She didn't offer Madison anything, not out of spite, but because she'd always served based on humanity, not hierarchy. Madison's jaw twitched at the sight. "We need to talk," she said. "You seem to say that often lately," I replied calmly. "And yet, nothing you say sounds like listening." Her nostrils flared. "The board wants a meeting with you today. They have questions. Serious ones." "They should," I said. "It was our life's work before it was your playground." She blinked fast, refusing to react. "I told them you were confused. That someone influenced you. They're concerned." "Concern is usually born from behavior," I said. "Not paperwork." "Stop speaking in riddles," she snapped, losing the polished tone she used in her networking world. "Just say you'll come. Sit quietly. Reassure them. Don't complicate anything." There it was again, her favorite word. Complicated. Anything that didn't revolve around her ego was complicated. "I will go," I said. "But I will speak truth. Not performance." Madison froze, as though truth was a threat she'd never planned to face. She tried again, softer this time, switching tactics like a person changing masks. "Mom, we're a family. This could destroy us." I studied her face, the trembling lip, the breath she kept catching in her throat. For a moment, I wondered if remorse had finally found her. But then I saw it as fear, not grief. Fear of losing status. Not love. "Family isn't destroyed by truth," I replied. "Family is destroyed by entitlement and neglect." She tightened her jaw. "You always think you're right." "No," I said, taking a gentle sip of tea. "I only think I deserve respect." She turned, leaving in frustration, muttering something about her hair appointment and investor calls. Even in crisis, vanity was her compass. When she left, Rosa looked at me, worry softening her face. "You don't have to go if it's stressful." I smiled faintly. Stress comes from pretending weakness. Strength comes from knowing truth. Later, Rosa helped me into the car, more out of habit than necessity. She held my coat, smoothed my sleeve, made sure I was steady, not because she thought I couldn't manage, but because caring was muscle memory for her. It struck me then, love doesn't ask permission to serve. It simply does. Madison and Brandon were already at the office when I arrived. They stood near the entrance, whispering furiously until they saw me. Brandon's smile appeared first, practiced, strained, meant to appear respectful but sick with calculation. "Mother," he said, reaching for my arm as though he suddenly remembered I existed. "Let me help you." "No," I replied calmly. "Rosa helps me. You assist yourselves." His hand froze midair, embarrassment flaring in his eyes, before he covered it again with a politician's smile. We entered the conference room. Executives and board members sat in polished chairs around the long glass table. Some looked surprised to see me walk with such quiet assurance. Others looked relieved. And a few, the ones who had known Thomas well, looked like the world had suddenly set itself back on its hinge. James was already there, file open, posture calm and alert like a guardian watching over truth. "Mrs. Carter," one of the directors said, "we appreciate you joining us." "I appreciate that you still remember who built this company," I replied. A hush settled. It wasn't hostility. It was recognition. Madison cleared her throat. Mom is just here for reassurance. Everything is fine. Everything is not fine, another board member interrupted. We discovered signed amendments. Major ones. All eyes turned to me. I didn't flinch. Yes, I said. I executed them. Murmurs. Surprise. Relief from some. Tightened shoulders from others. Madison jumped in, desperate. She was influenced. Manipulated. I wasn't manipulated, I said firmly. I was ignored, disrespected, dismissed, and publicly belittled in my own home. That's what influenced me. Silence hit the room like a gavel. Brandon's jaw tightened. Madison's eyes flickered with humiliation. Mrs. Carter, one director spoke, voice gentle, is it true you no longer trust your daughter to manage your estate and health decisions? Yes. Madison inhaled sharply. Brandon's face flushed. Why? Someone asked. I glanced at my daughter, her expensive outfit, her tight fist on the table, the panic masked under fury. Because trust cannot be claimed, I said quietly. It must be earned. And loyalty is not a birthright. Madison slammed her hand on the table. I built this company. No, I replied, calm and razor sharp. You inherited its comfort. You wore its success like jewelry, not duty. Her face crumpled with rage. You're destroying me. No, I whispered, meeting her eyes. You destroyed what you had when you forgot who gave it to you. One of the elders on the board leaned forward. Mrs. Carter, what do you intend now? I intend to live in peace, I said, surrounded by those who treat dignity as currency, not inconvenience. I saw it then, the moment realization broke over Madison's features like a cracked mirror. She wasn't losing money. She was losing authority. Legacy. Image. And none of her rehearsed charm could fix it now. We trust Mrs. Carter's judgment, one board member finally said. She built this. Her voice stands. Brandon straightened, pale. Madison's chest rose and fell in fast, shallow breaths. James nodded at me subtly, as if sealing an unseen victory. The meeting ended. The board shook my hand, some with respect, some with relief, some with dawning fear of accountability. Madison didn't look at me. She stared at the table like maybe she could will her world back into the shape she liked. As I walked out, they both followed. Outside, on the building steps, Madison turned to me. You ruined my life. No, I answered softly. I protected mine. You'll die alone, she hissed. And there it was, her truth. Ugly. Naked. Revealing everything she tried to hide behind manicured smiles and curated brunches. I would rather die alone with dignity, I said, than live surrounded by company who forgot how to love. She stared, shock mixing with a grief she didn't yet know how to understand. I turned away, steps steady, chin lifted not in pride but in peace. Rosa stood by the car, watching with worried eyes. When I reached her, she opened the door and offered her hand quietly, respectfully, without claiming credit, without needing acknowledgement. I took it. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt held by loyalty, not trapped by blood. As the car pulled away, I did not look back. If they wanted to chase money more than morals, they were welcome to. I had chosen something richer, myself. The house felt different when I returned. Not bigger, not quieter, simply clarified. Like someone had washed the air, leaving only truth behind. Rosa walked slightly ahead of me, nervous, unsure whether she should speak or stay silent. She settled on silence, but it was the respectful kind, not fearful. She never hovered, she simply stayed close enough so I wouldn't ever feel alone unless I chose to be. I sat in the living room, easing myself into Thomas's favorite armchair. It still smelled faintly of cedar and leather polish, the way he liked it. Rosa hesitated in the doorway. "Do you want tea?" "Tea would be nice," I said softly. She nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. For a moment, I just breathed. The weight of years as expectation, responsibility, motherhood, blind hope, lifted like dust shaken off an old rug. Freedom didn't feel loud. It felt gentle. Like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. There was a softness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Not victory. Something simpler. Peace. The front door burst open. Madison. Her heels clicked aggressively on the hardwood, and she walked in like she still commanded the room. But ego never enters quietly, it stomps to remind itself it exists. She didn't even look at me first. She scanned the space like she needed witnesses for the scene she was preparing to perform. When she found none, she stared directly at me. "You think you've won?" I looked up at her calmly. This was never a competition. I don't compete with my child. Her laughter was harsh, brittle. Save the poetic lines. "You just love punishing me, don't you?" "You always have." I blinked slowly. There it was, the victim in her, the one she built to protect her pride. "I am not punishing you. I am freeing myself." "You think Rosa cares about you?" she demanded suddenly, switching target like someone throwing knives to distract from their wounds. "She's here for a payday. She's using you." Before I could respond, Rosa walked in holding a tray with tea. Madison turned on her like a snake striking. "You can stop pretending now. You won. Congratulations. You played the humble act, fed her tea, tucked her in at night, look how well it paid off." Rosa froze, tray steady despite the tremor I saw in her eyes. "I didn't do anything for." "Yes. You did. You existed. And apparently that's enough to make you a saint." "Madison," I said quietly, "you are humiliating yourself." "I am trying to save you," she shouted. "No," I answered. "You are trying to save what you believe you lost, power. Not me." She shook her head, face contorted in disbelief and rage. "I built everything. I increased our brand value. I grew the investor list. You grew your ego," I said. "And shrunk your heart." She sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. "You'll regret choosing a housekeeper over your own daughter." Rosa set the tray down and stepped back, hands shaking. "Mrs. Carter, maybe I should leave." "No," my voice was firm. "You stay." Madison scoffed. "Of course. Keep the act going. But don't forget, staff don't stay out of love. They stay until they get what they came for." Rosa lowered her gaze, pain visible in the tightening of her lips. "Madison, ma'am, I never." "You never what?" Madison cut in. "Never hoped she would reward you? Never imagined gaining something? Come on. Let's not pretend loyalty is free." Rosa's eyes filled, not with guilt, but insult. "I stayed because she treated me like family when I had none. Madison rolled her eyes. Touching. I took a slow breath. I am not giving Rosa my legacy because she served me. I'm doing it because she never asked for anything. And I did. Madison shot back. I asked to be your daughter. You asked to be crowned, I corrected. Not to be loved. Not to love. Silence. Heavy, thick, final. Her voice softened suddenly, breaking in places she never showed weakness. Mom, we can fix this. Please. For the first time in a long time, my heart felt her. My child. The one I carried. The one I once dreamed the world for. But motherhood is not martyrdom. Love does not mean lying to yourself. You could have fixed it long ago, I said, quietly. All you ever had to do was treat me with respect. Not perfection. Just humanity. Her face collapsed. So that's it? Years of raising me, and I mean nothing? You mean something, I whispered. You mean my child. But not my caretaker. Not my ally. Not my safe place. Her lip quivered. For the first time, a real tear fell. Not rage. Not entitlement. Grief. Or the closest her pride allowed to grief. And she choked, nodding at Rosa. No, I said gently. She is not replacing you. She is standing where you stepped aside. Madison's breath hitched. I hate you. I don't hate you, I said softly. I grieve for you. She stared at me, disbelief and heartbreak tangled in her eyes. The kind of heartbreak that isn't about loss, but about finally seeing what you threw away. She turned and walked out. No slamming this time. Just footsteps that sounded like someone carrying the weight of truth for the first time. The door closed. Rosa sat slowly beside me. I never wanted this, she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't want to take anything from anyone. I just didn't want you to be alone. I reached over and took her hand. You didn't take anything. You earned something. I'm just me, she murmured. And that, I said with a small smile, was enough. She covered her face, shoulders shaking, overwhelmed, humbled, broken open by kindness she never expected from life. I leaned back, letting the moment breathe. The house didn't feel empty. It felt true. Quiet, yes. But peace is quiet. Later that night, I stood in the doorway of Thomas's study. His photograph sat on the shelf, his gentle smile frozen in time. I traced my fingers over the frame. I kept my promise, I whispered. I chose peace when love failed me. A breeze brushed past, almost like a presence, warm and approving. Or maybe it was just memory giving comfort the way the living once did. I turned off the light and walked toward my room. Rosa peeked from the hallway. Do you need anything before bed? No, I said. Just rest. We both earned it. She nodded and disappeared down the hall, not a servant retiring for the night, but someone who finally truly belonged. In the quiet dark of my room, I lay down and closed my eyes. Not as a woman abandoned by her child. Not as a victim of disrespect. But as someone who finally understood. You cannot teach gratitude to someone who worships entitlement. You cannot build legacy on ego. You cannot force love where humility has died. And family? Family is not blood. Family is who feeds you when you are forgotten. Who listens when you are dismissed. Who stands when you have no strength left to stand for yourself. Some daughters are born. Others are chosen. And sometimes, God sends the right one late, when the wrong one has already left your heart empty enough to recognize the gift. I did not lose a daughter. I found one. Not all endings are tragedy. Some are rebirth. And mine? Mine was freedom whispered quietly into a house that finally felt like home again.